Jack Douglas True Television series that opens the doorways of the world we live in.
Hello, everyone. This is Jack Douglas. This doorway that we see is one of the most closely guarded doorways in America. Few doorways outside of Washington are harder to crash. It happens to be the entrance to the styling center of an automobile manufacturer, the Ford Motor Company at Dearborn, Michigan. And here on my right is our special guest, is the man in charge of that division and who's made it possible for us to open wide this heretofore secret door. Our guest, Mr. William Clay Ford. Our story, The Secret Door. Ladies and gentlemen, behind the secret doors of the styling center we are about to visit, we're going to see plans and ideas that will surprise and I think even amaze many of our viewers. But before we go behind the secret door, I'd like to ask our guest, Mr. Bill Ford, who's the head of product planning and styling at Dearborn, to answer a question that may be in your mind at this very moment. Bill, to my knowledge, this is the first time that your company or any major automobile manufacturer has permitted the television cameras to go behind these inner sanctum doors of the styling center. Now, why did you people consent to have us do so?
Well, Jack, we feel that styling is perhaps one of the most important, yet least understood aspects of the automotive business. And it's an aspect that has aroused great public interest. And in view of this increasing interest, we decided to let the bars down.
All right, Bill, and now with your assistance for the next half hour, let's see what's been going on behind the secret door.
Greenfield Village in Dearborn was founded in the late 1920s by Henry Ford as a living memorial to automotive travel. This is the first Ford factory, moved from its original site in Detroit. And this grand old car approaching us is the 1903 model, manufactured the year that Ford Motor Company was founded. Some 60 years later, it still runs like a fine precision watch. Very few were made and sold, as it was too elegant and too costly even in its own time. Within a few years, Mr. Ford put into practice an idea that revolutionized our way of life, the moving assembly line. This was one of the cars that helped bring about the revolution, the 1910 Model T. And here, the classic 1929 Model A. "30 years later, William Clay Ford, one of the grandsons of Henry Ford, drives to work in a Thunderbird. Quite a contrast to the Model A. The camera follows Mr. Ford as he drives along the Edsel Ford Expressway, named in honor of his father, Henry Ford's only son. At the entrance of Ford Motor Company's styling center in Dearborn, he stops to be recognized, and the security guard waves him through. And stop he must. There are guards at every gate. This is the Advanced Styling Studio, which is devoted primarily to styling years ahead. These are some of the men who spin daydreams, the kind of daydreams that have a way of coming true. They sketch plans and drawings by the thousands to get the few designs that show real promise for production. Here's what happens to the rejects. They end up in locked waste paper baskets. These are then emptied into disposable paper bags under the watchful eyes of security guards. And then, still under security supervision, the unwanted sketches and drawings are burned. Yes, some daydreams go up in smoke, but those that show promise reach the attention of Mr. Ford and Jean Bordinat, Vice President and Director of Styling. Next, they call in the chief stylists from the 4 styling studios. At these sessions, protocol goes out the window. More likely than not, they'll make important changes in the design approach to get the one theme which will capture the imagination of the buying public. They finally agree on a car to which they have given the code name, the Astrion. Now Mr. Ford carries the ball to the styling committee, consisting of other top executives. This includes brothers Henry, chairman of the board, and Benson Ford, who heads the company's dealer policy board. Yes, the Astrion will also be a far cry from the Model A. They like what they see, and styling gets the green light to proceed with the design. The first step in the building of a full-size clay model is a wooden skeleton or armature. After the armature has been finished, the next step is to cover it with clay, which obviously is easier to work with than metal. Pound after pound of warm clay is applied, spread, and skillfully modeled. Before they're through, some 5,000 pounds of clay and some 6,000 man-hours will have gone into the making of this one clay model. And these clay skers, like Toby Malone, are artists in a literal sense. For at home, Toby has a one-room studio, decorated with numerous samples of recent sculptures. Many of the clay modelers, as well as the stylists, regularly exhibit their work in art shows. Working side by side with Toby on the clay model is another talented and respected artist, Jack Steele, shown here adding the finishing touches to the fender. Jack, however, isn't a sculptor, but a painter, and a good one. This is a current work, a painting that he has promised to the National Religious Art Exhibition in Detroit. Like Toby Malone, Jack Steele is a consistent prize winner at art shows and exhibits. In the hands of artists such as these, the Astrion begins to take shape. For the most part, accessories for the interior of the car are specially designed and made by hand in the metal shop. Also in the shop, machinist Bob Miller is turning what will be the Astrion's tail light. What appears to be a metal box in the hands of fabricator Louis Ellis is actually a new type of door handle, a tab or bar that depresses to release the door catch. Once the lights are added, the Astrion really begins to look like a car. The work of the clay modelers is almost finished. All that remains is to recheck the final measurements. In styling terminology, this is called taking points. And even for this clay model, measurements are accurate to 1/10,000th of an inch. Meanwhile, Mr. Bordinat has the difficult task of approving fabrics and color for presentation to top management. In the trim shop, upholsterers are at work on the fabrics to be used for the interior of the Astrion. The next step is called die-knocking. Over the clay window area, a thin sheet of special plastic material is applied to simulate the appearance of windows. Aluminum foil is used to simulate the grille and bumper. Properly applied, it's difficult to tell from chrome. The Astrion is given a crest of its own. And now the final step, the paint job. And for this clay model, sheets of painted DI-NOC are applied to the body surfaces. Once applied, the excess material will be trimmed, and in a very short time, the Astrion has been painted, right in the studio. The Astrion is wheeled out to the styling center courtyard. The first to see it are the chief stylists. Not until the Astrion has passed their inspection will it be shown to the styling committee. For each car line, the same cycle is repeated: sketches, renderings, and clay models, in order to give management the best possible designs from which to make the final choice. Security demands that even rejected models be destroyed completely. For nothing in the automotive business is more carefully guarded than the products of the styling studios. Some advanced models are carried further and made fully operational. This one is the Futura. The roof is a clear plastic double bubble canopy hinged at the rear. The aerodynamics of the design are tested in a huge wind tunnel, which the engineers call Hurricane Road. This giant fan, 24 feet in diameter, can generate winds up to 125 miles per hour, with gusts up to 140. It moves 3 million cubic feet of air through the tunnel every 60 seconds. They freeze the Futura time and again to prove its operation at 40 degrees below zero. These men who conceive and supervise the testing of parts and procedures must certainly be rated among the unsung, unseen heroes of the automotive industry. This test involves the brake dynamometer and tests the brake drums and all component parts. At speeds of up to 200 miles per hour, the engineers make sure that the brake systems in our cars can stand more punishment than they would ever absorb in everyday driving. The anechoic chamber is so completely soundproof that a person alone in the room can actually hear his own heartbeat. Here, the engineer is probing vibrations that might reach the passenger compartment as an unpleasant hum. Having survived its tests in Hurricane Road, the Futura is taken to the Dearborn Proving Ground. Test driver Johnny Stoppa flicks a switch to lower the plastic canopy and prepares to test the car on the high-speed track. Although the Futura is still a long way from the production line, the stylists are looking far beyond, to a car that might operate on exotic fuels and electrical power. Even the remotest possibilities give scope to the vivid imaginations of the advanced designers. The Delta-shaped model, adapted from Delta Wing aircraft, is another example of the stylist's creativity. One feature is a radar scope that would warn the driver of road conditions ahead. Even though it hasn't been perfected, the stylist must anticipate it, and he designs it into the car. The search for a compact and practical radar scope or proximity warning device is already underway. These tiny horns, which would be mounted on the front of a car, transmit a signal. When the signal is bounced back, in this instance from the onrushing train, the circuit is broken and the warning device is immediately activated. Here's another of the intriguing features of the future in the delta-shaped model. Two of its four wheels would retract so that the car would ride on only a front and a rear wheel. A gyroscopic stabilizer prevents the car from tipping sideways, in itself a promising safety feature. The other obvious features of the gyroscopically stabilized car would be an extremely smooth ride, firm control at high speeds, and reduced friction through aerodynamic styling. Another dream of the future is the Volante, shown here 3/8 scale. The Volante conceivably would be powered by 3 sets of rotor blades, arranged in a triangular pattern. These rotor units would provide lift and thrust, so that the car would literally ride on a cushion of air. The basic principle, of course, is derived from the helicopter. The stylists are not limited to passenger cars. They also apply their talents to trucks, tractors, or combination vehicles like this weekend camper. Here, the designer combined a more or less conventional truck cab with a most unconventional body, complete with 3 bunks, telephone, kitchen sink, stove, and an infrared oven. This model of a dream tractor is called the Typhoon. Its styling follows the pattern set by passenger cars in transferring comfort features from the home into vehicles in which people spend much of their time. The stylists visualize air conditioning, a radio telephone, a coffee pot and refrigerator. Though not ready for production, the Typhoon has been applauded by farmers wherever it has been shown. This is a look into Dreamville, the land of just around the corner, created as the byproduct of imagination wedded to design and engineering. In Dearborn, they call this byproduct advanced styling, the look of tomorrow on wheels. At this point, words are superfluous. Through the keyhole of the secret door, the camera tells the story.
Bill Ford, as long as I can remember, and that is a little too long, I'm afraid, I've heard the rumor that many, many years ago, an inventor invented an air engine for automobiles. That this engine has been perfected, that it's been ready all these years, but that under pressure from the oil companies, you folks in Detroit and Dearborn have not made use of it now. Is that true or false?
Well, Jack, it's very definitely false. If we or any other company had such an engine that was ready, that was operational, that was sound economically to make and to sell, I'm sure we'd have it on the road right now. It's not the case. We don't have it.
Bill, let's talk about these future styles. We saw some luscious styles today of new cars at your company, and I'm sure the other companies in their styling divisions are also creating these wonderful things for the future. But always, it seems to be, if I may say so, in the future. When does that future get here for us, the customers?
Well, the customer is the one who decides when the future gets here. We have found that the customer does not take too readily to a radical design change. He would much rather go through an evolutionary stage, so therefore we can't be too advanced in the car that we put on the road, say, next model year. We have to build up to it gradually.
I see. It's a gradual process of evolution in your business as well as in so many others. Bill, one final question. We're in the space age. We're talking of rockets and nuclear power. We already have nuclear power in submarines, in steamships. What are the chances of nuclear-powered automobiles or rocket-driven automobiles for the near future?
That's a very difficult question to answer. The automobile, as you well know, has many problems peculiar unto itself that, say, a submarine does not have. I can assure you, however, that we are exploring most diligently every means of automotive power that we can think up. Our research is most active in this field, and whenever we have it ready, it'll be on the road. But I can't tell you exactly when.
Bill Ford, I do want to thank you very much, not only for this chance to ask you some hot seat questions. I hope they haven't been too hot, but also I'd like to thank you and all of your people back in Dearborn at the Styling Center for your cooperation and for your kindness in permitting us to get behind the secret door of the Styling Center. We do appreciate it. Thank you very, very much.